let's move on to week 8. New York Giants versus Seattle Seahawks. And hey, the Giants actually lead the series all-time 10-9. Now, you might be surprised why there haven't been many games between them in the history, despite the fact that the Seahawks have existed since the 70s. That's because the Seahawks actually started out as an AFC team back when they were at the Kingdome. And the Giants are 2-4 during the Pete Carroll era, but incidentally, the last game we played against them was pretty memorable, and it was their only win against Russell Wilson.
Yeah, I remember. I have such a vivid memory of winning that game with Colt McCoy coming in, winning that game for us. I had no hope whatsoever, literally whatsoever. So the fact that we're going up against this it's a different Seattle Seahawks team for sure than it was. What was that 2 years ago? No.
How was that 2 years ago? It was crazy because I remember that game very well. I was watching it.
Yeah, so do I.
I was watching it with Tom 2 years ago. That was one of I think multiple games we've watched together since this show has existed, and that was the Colt McCoy starting game.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was the game that essentially broke the Seattle Seahawks for all intents and purposes, because they were really never the same, and everyone else essentially figured out how to defend Russell Wilson. And while it's funny because looking back at him, he's probably going to be a forgotten defensive coordinator. I think that was really the game where Patrick Graham unleashed the good defensive game plan. I mean,
yeah, no, that was definitely an underdog type of story game for us. Obviously, with Daniel Jones being, I think that was when he hurt his neck or something. I don't even remember what his injury was at that time, but
yes, it was the neck injury that he had during the Bengals game, and that was a game the Giants should have lost. By the way, the Bengals game, they got very lucky that week.
Yeah, that was, and I think also Joe Burrow was hurt at that point as well, right?
Yeah, I can't put a finger on who the starting quarterback for the Bengals was. It might have been their third stringer.
Was it Finley?
I think you're right. It could be Finley. Yeah.
Either way, this
but
is
remember that game. I remember too because I remember having to get in my car and listen to the second half of it on the radio and sweating it out when they almost came back. But in any event, back to this game.
Yeah.
Daniel Bellinger, Evan Neal, Ben Bredesen. Doesn't look like either of them are going to be playing due to injuries. So it begs the question, who is going to be starting at left guard? I think Nick Gates is definitely a possibility to come back and be a part of the rotation. I don't know that they necessarily want to get him in there right away, so to speak, because, I mean, you look at all the injuries that he's been suffering, but I think eventually with time he's gonna get his feet wet and be part of that mold again.
I know that Tyree Phillips and Josh Jeudy were the two guys that came in during that game, and they did a fairly good job. So if they are the ones that come in and do this and play in this game, it's not the end of the world. I don't think. I think they're fairly decent backups that can fill in that role until they can return. But I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, Hank, if you know, but I'm pretty sure this week the Giants versus the Seahawks is the only matchup in week 8 with two teams with winning records. I'm pretty sure that's true.
Are you ready for me to quote Tom? You would happen to be correct.
Aha! I saw that somewhere and I double checked it because I was like, who would have thought going into week 8, Giants and Daniel Jones v. Seattle Seahawks and Geno Smith would be the game of the week? It's insane. And I think we need to talk a little bit about Geno Smith because, obviously we're familiar with him.
Yeah, that's one game that I've tried to block out of the memory bank. Are you noticing a pattern of me saying that with a lot of bad Giant games? So
we don't need to talk about that. We just need to talk about Geno Smith.
Let me get some more comments. Tom says Hank and I definitely remember that game. Yep. One of multiple great victories that you and I watched together, Tom. And oh gosh, Scotty, how scary is that? We were rolling out quarterbacks like Colt McCoy, Jake Fromm,
State Farm,
Mike Glennon,
Mike Glennon.
See,
Oh man.
funny, it took a few years late, but we were all proven right when we said you wouldn't appreciate Eli until he was gone. But that's a tangent for another day. Who will start at right tackle? It looked like it's going to be Tyree Phillips, but he did not look great in that game against the Jaguars. And the Giants scoring offense, 21 points per game. That's 18th in the NFL. Passing 160.9 yards per game. That's 30th. And then their rushing offense is first in the NFL with 173.4 yards per game. Again, credit that to having Saquon Barkley and a really good offensive line. And then we look at the scoring defense, sixth best in the NFL. Passing defense is 14th, but rushing defense is what worries me. Probably maybe a little bit more so than Geno. And as far as the Seahawks go, can you believe that they're in first place?
No, I 100% cannot believe that. I had a very different mindset of what the Seattle Seahawks are going to be like this year. But Geno Smith has been performing very well, surprisingly. Obviously, starting off kicking Russell Wilson's butt in week 1 and just like standing his ground. I
Did you also
believe.
beat your boy Justin Herbert?
Yeah, I know that was a rough watch last week too, and it's just not great, honestly. But I believe he completes, what is it, 70% of his catches or 70% of his throws.
Yep.
So like that's really impressive, and that's definitely going to be something that our secondary needs to keep an eye on, because like we cannot have him tossing it down the field and getting touchdowns and getting up on us, because we can't lose to Geno Smith. I refuse to lose to Geno Smith.
Oh no, that would be bad. And
I can't do it. I'd rather lose to the Jacksonville Jaguars. I really would.
crazy part, 11 touchdowns to just 3 interceptions. Like, I can already hear all those Jet fans saying, where was this when he was in New York?
Hey, that's where quarterbacks go to die. You guys know that.
But then let's also talk about the production of the receivers. Tyler Lockett, 7 catches, 45 yards. Marquise Goodwin, 4 catches, 67 yards, 2 touchdowns. DK Metcalf's status is in doubt. He was dealing with an injury.
Yeah.
But another guy that definitely you got to worry about is Kenneth Walker, the running back, 168 yards last week and a pair of touchdowns. The defense in Seattle is giving up 5 yards per carry and allowing 10 rushing touchdowns. And they also faced 51 pass attempts versus Justin Herbert last week.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan Neal, their safety, had 4 passes deflected versus the Chargers. That's a 75.5 PFF grade. And the Giants, as I said, have given up the highest yards per carry in the NFL. Travis Etienne averaged 8.1. So I think the run defense is something that definitely scares me.
Yeah, and I know we're about to get into like our keys to the game and so on and so forth. But the run game is something that's so important, because I was actually looking at some Travis Etienne stats today, and he had 114 yards in this past game with against us. It was the most yards he's had this entire season in one game. He was getting 30s and 40s, and then the past 2 weeks he's gotten like 70s and 80s, and now he broke 100 in our game. So like obviously our run defense is something that really needs. I mean, Travis Etienne's also just getting better, but especially against somebody like Kenneth Walker, who has just been blowing up for the Seattle Seahawks, like just doing incredible. It's something really, really important for us to focus on.
I'm sorry, Scott's comment just. That's a good one. Anyways, let's get to the keys to the game. So I'm going to start with you first. Sam, what is your main key to this game?
Yeah, so just to kind of go off of what I was just saying before, stopping the run, which is our new get off the field on third down. Stopping the run is very, very important. Like I said, Kenneth Walker is somebody who is insanely good, and going up against Travis Etienne last week, like we really got to keep it tight with the run defense. And I'll even throw in the fact that, our offensive line is injured now, and Daniel Jones has been thriving with a good offensive line. So we need to continue that. And that's how we're going to help, it's going to help us win the game if Daniel Jones is thriving. So we need to make sure that whoever does go in on the offensive line side, like does well and can continue to be a brick wall for him, because otherwise we've seen the way he is with a bad offensive line. And I I can't go through that again, Hank. I can't do it.
Yep, I think that's a good one. And I would, for my key to the game, I would say you definitely have to pressure Geno Smith. Kayvon Thibodeau and Jihad Ward need to get in his face and put as much pressure on him as possible. And one matchup that's going to be really intriguing is Kayvon Thibodeau going against another rookie in left tackle Charles Cross, who the Seattle Seahawks took, I believe, in the second round. Seahawks have another rookie offensive tackle in Abraham Lucas. So they might have their hands full with this New York Giants pass rush. And obviously, Dexter Lawrence is going to be a factor. He's the team leader in sacks with 4. And I think the question is, can Leonard Williams also get to the quarterback?
Yeah, definitely. And Dexter Lawrence, just to hop back to last week for a second, I feel like Dexter Lawrence played really, really well last week. And he had a few penalties here and there, but overall, I thought his performance was really good. So
let me bring up Tom's comment, which I saved a little bit just because I wanted to get to this segment first. Seahawks spent 2 early draft picks on bookend tackles in Cross and Lucas. Ken Walker scares the shit out of me. I agree with that.
100%. 100%. Kenneth Walker, since the Rashad Penny injury too, Kenneth Walker has just been an anomaly with the run game. It's terrifying, honestly.
I hope somebody in our fantasy league picked him up pretty quickly.
I should check. I'm gonna look.
And
if no one did, I'm grabbing him.
And Scotty, no need to apologize. I love that comment. I thought it was absolutely hilarious. But in any event, that's my key to the game. But I think you know what else I'm going to say. Get off the field on third down. You got to feed Barkley, get him going early and often because, as we said, Seattle's run defense isn't that great either. And last week, he even with that play that nearly cost the Giants the game, he still rushed for 110 yards. So should be interesting to see what happens. And now, Sam, let me ask you, who is your player? Give me a player to watch from both sides.
So my 2 players to watch are both running backs. As we've been saying his name over and over and over again. Kenneth Walker is my player to watch just because, like we've said, I won't reiterate any longer, but he's a beast, and the run game is something that's really important for us to work on. And I just think, just in general too, like just watching him perform, even not against the Giants, he's just a good player to watch. And the other side of the ball, I'm going to go Saquon, just because with our offensive line being a little bit unstable, if he can still perform the way that he has been these past couple of weeks, like we're still golden. Like we're still good. As just block for him, give him the smallest amount of space to get through, and he's off. So I'm definitely saying the run game on Sunday is going to be insane on both sides of the ball. So those are my 2 players to watch.
So I am going to go with Tyler Lockett. I think he's going to be a big target, assuming that Metcalf does not play. Last week, as I mentioned, 41 catches, 468 yards, and 2 touchdowns, 77.2 PFF grade. Definitely an underrated target that they still have, and he's one of the few remaining players from the glory years, too.
Yeah.
And for the Giants, I am going to go with Dexter Lawrence because I think ultimately the difference between the Giants probably winning and losing this game is stopping the run, and I think he needs to be on his A game for the Giants to win this.
Absolutely.
And some other players that I do want to mention, Will Dissly, the tight end, just because we've talked about it many times before. The Giants struggle with tight ends. Engram had a decent game last week with 67 receiving yards. So I would say him and Noah Fant might be an interesting combo to look out for with regards to tight ends. And then you've got Jordan Brooks, who has 73 tackles. And then I would also say Tariq Woolen, who's a good member of the secondary. He's a rookie with 4 picks, 6 passes defended, and 2 fumble recoveries. So one of the rising star cornerbacks in the league for sure. And as far as the Giants go, I would say Fabian Moreau because he's definitely done a really good job stepping up in the secondary, had that big tackle at the end of the game that we all know about. So those are some honorable mentions, essentially. And we got a few more comment. We got one more comment from Tom. Heading home from work. Have a great rest of the show. Tom, thank you so much. It is definitely not the same without you, but
Next
hopefully
week.
this time you will be back next week. It'll be back to normal. All three of us are on together.
Safe travels, Tom.
Yes.
Safe travels home.
And those are the players to watch. And now, of course, we got to get to the injury report. So for the Giants, Cordell Flott, Kenny Galladay, O'Shane Zimenez, Daniel Bellinger, Evan Neal, and Ben Bredesen all did not practice today. Flott was dealing with a calf. Galladay had a knee problem. Zimenez was dealing with a quad. Daniel Bellinger, we know about his eye. Hopefully he's back sooner rather than later. Evan Neal with the MCL sprain, and then we know about Ben Bredesen's knee problem. Players with limited practice, Tyree Phillips, Jason Pinnock, and Leonard Williams. And now we go over to the Seahawks. DK Metcalf, Penny Hart, Phil Haynes, Nick Belmore, Poona Ford, Daryl Taylor all did not practice. Metcalf was dealing with a knee injury. He might not be playing. Penny Hart was dealing with a hamstring. Phil Haynes had a concussion, as did Nick Bellore. Poona Ford was dealing with an ankle, and Daryl Taylor was dealing with a groin injury. And as far as players with limited practice, Tyler Lockett was dealing with a hamstring, but it looks like he's going to play. Cornerback Artie Burns, the former Steeler, was dealing with a groin injury, but he looks like he will play. Ryan Neal had an ankle injury. Quentin Jefferson had a foot injury, and Sidney Jones is dealing with a groin injury. And now, one of my favorite segments, last but certainly not least, let's get to our predictions. And Sam, I'm going to start with you.
All right. I just want to say, too, that's, I think, the first time that an injury report on the other team has been longer than ours. So I guess that's
right. It's crazy.
That's a good upgrade for us, I suppose. And for my game prediction, I thought about this a lot, and I think, crazy enough, the Seahawks is going to be one of the hardest teams for us, especially going over to the West Coast. That's always, kind of a hard thing to do with the time difference and whatnot, the traveling. But I have such faith in this team, even with the injuries, that I'm feeling like the Giants are going to pull out a win for us. We're going to go 7-1. We're going to be even more in the spotlight, beating someone like Geno Smith, which is, again, crazy to say. So I think the Giants are going to win. I think it's going to be 24-20. It's going to be close, like they do every week. They keep it close. And I think that it's actually going to be a really, really intense game going back and forth. And hopefully the Giants come out on top. But that's what I'm thinking.
I like it. I hope you're right. And Tom, I think, might be on a similar page with you, although his score is interesting. He has it being a very low defensive struggle, which is kind of surprising considering what we said about, stopping the run and the Seahawks being one of the tougher teams. But he has the Giants winning 14-13. And unfortunately, here's where I'm going to disagree. Personally, I hope the Giants can get this win. It would be nice to enter the bye week at 7-1, but I have a bad feeling we're going to be due to lose sooner or later. And Seattle is a place where the New York Giants have historically struggled, and it is almost very tough to win there. Obviously, we know about the power of the 12s.
Yeah.
I think the Giants will make it a close game, but ultimately it's going to be that crazy Geno Smith magic that does us in. I'm going to say the final score is going to be 21-17 Seattle.
I feel like this is a either or type of game. Like both of these teams is very, very possible for either of them to win. Like I don't write off the Giants as much as I do last year, obviously, since we're playing so much better. But like I said, this is a really, really tough opponent to go up against, and we have to travel to the West Coast, to Seattle, to that loud ass stadium. So, but I'm excited to see. How we overcome this. So it's gonna be a good game.
You should also kind of be thanking me because I don't think the Giants have lost on a day where I've picked against them.
Yeah, Hank, you just have to consistently not pick the Giants because it helps us win.
I mean, I don't know if that necessarily worked as much in years past, but this year it is.
This year it's working. It's working. If it's not broke, don't fix it.
But in any event, Sam, thanks again for another great episode. Again, it definitely feels weird not having Tom around, but definitely another great show. And yeah, no, anyways, that's pretty much all we have for you guys today. As always, please don't forget to follow us on our social medias. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at Big Blue Avenue. And of course, please don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube as well. Hit that big red button down below. Give us a like, give us a comment. Let us know your thoughts. We want to hear from you guys. And of course, as you also know, Big Blue Avenue is a sub show of Review and Preview. So you can also follow us on Review and Preview on all of our social medias, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter at Review and Preview Sports. And again, much like with our Big Blue Avenue channel, please don't forget to hit that big red button down there below for that as well. But Sam, I am looking forward to another good week of Giants football. Do you have any more closing thoughts before we sign off?
I am just ready to go. I'm ready to keep on this streak. I want a 5-game win streak. Let's do it.
There you have it. Hopefully the 5-game win streak happens. But folks, you have just watched another episode of Big Blue Avenue. On behalf of Tom Scavetta, Sam Cardona, I'm Hank and Dichter, and let's go
Big Blue.